Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is a exciting video because I'm going to be talking about all the books that I was able to read in April. So first off, let me just say it's literally thunderstorming outside. So today I was not putting on makeup or a cute outfit. We're in PJs, cozy clothes. It's also thunderstorming like super bad right now. So hopefully with the mic attachment, it's not going to be too loud and like distracting, like there's lightning. We're gonna get right into it. I read 9 books in April. Thunder break. So I read 9 books in April. The original plan was somehow going to be to read 13 books. I don't know how I thought I was going to be able to do that, but I did get to 9, and the majority of them are actually the Hunger Games. So I went back to my roots as a young teenager and got back in the Hunger Games trilogy, the OG trilogy. So The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Mockingjay. And somehow these books captured my heart even more than when I read them when I was a teenager. I think I read these for the first time in like 2010. I read The Hunger Games and then I went right back out and got Catching Fire, and I was obsessed with them. I was so excited when the movie came out. And then when Mockingjay came out, I was super hyped. I love those books so much. They are, in my opinion, the perfect example that young adult fiction isn't too cliche or cheesy. Those books are actual perfection for me. So I rated those 5 stars. My personal favorite is Catching Fire. That's also my favorite adaptation too. I think of all the books, it's probably the most by the book. I just love those books. I think I want to do like a video essay or something on the Hunger Games because I love the books that much. So if you're someone who doesn't know what the Hunger Games is, it's basically about a young girl named Katniss Everdeen. So this is a dystopian novel that's set way in the future, basically because of climate change, war. What we know as North America has now been turned into a country called Panem. Basically, the country is divided into areas called districts, and they kind of function like maybe a state would. Each one of the districts has different things that they specialize in that supply the capital. So the capital is basically like the big city, quote unquote. Very ultra wealthy people live there, and the Hunger Games began as a concept after the rebellion, which they refer to as the Dark Days, and where the rebels struck against the capital, and there was a lot of violence, a lot of war, and unfortunately the capital kind of took control back over the country of Panem, and now as punishment the districts have to send a boy and a girl from ages 13 to 18 to fight basically to the death. And there's one victor for the entire country. It's very dark, very morbid. The Hunger Games is so much more than just a YA novel. Like, it talks about propaganda, government corruption, navigating grief. It touches on the real effects of war have on people, poverty. Like, it's a very, very deep novel. All of the books in this series are very well loved for a reason. Like, they are, like I said, no notes on any of these books. They're so good. It's also very traumatic, like thinking about having to live these experiences. Throughout the series, she's 17 to 18. All this happens within like a couple years of her life, and it's actually insane. The way the people react to Mockingjay, the 3rd book, a lot of people don't like it because they feel like Katniss should be a lot stronger than she is in the first 2 books, but people, I think, tend to forget, like, one, she's still a literal teenager, and like she's had the most traumatic things happen to her within the past year and a half. Like, she's going to break down, like, eventually. You can only put up a wall and be so strong before your body physically just cannot do it anymore. I want to do a whole video on my experiences with rereading The Hunger Games as an adult. In that same breath, I was also able to read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and this is my first time reading this book. I saw the movie before I read the book, which is not something that I typically do. So like, normally if a movie's coming out and I find out that there's a book first, I try to always read the book first and then watch the movie, because there's always different ways the author versus the director of the film or the writer of the film kind of portray scenes and stuff. I feel like I was one of the few people who actually enjoyed the movie without reading the book first. There is a lot of criticism on the movie, and I totally understand and honestly agree. What's nice about the book is that it's told in 3rd person, so we're able to kind of get a bird's eye view of future President Snow's kind of demise, and we learn why he is the way that he is, which is an absolute jerkwad. He is an evil person. Like, he's one of the best villains. That man don't care, bro. Like, he has a goal and a plan, and he's gonna stick to it. I'm someone who believes that you have to read the original trilogy before you read Songbirds and Snakes, because you really understand, like, oh, this man has always been like this. So I personally really enjoyed the book. The first two parts were super incredible. I wish the third part, which is called The Peacemaker, was a little bit longer, which is crazy to say because the book is already like 500 pages long. There was like at least 100 more pages of that book. I think that it wouldn't have felt so rushed and kind of random in some ways. It definitely didn't hit as hard as the original trilogy, but I did end up rating it 4 stars, which is a really good rating. I just really enjoy learning the why on villains, because sometimes what happens is if you read a book about a villain's origin story, you end up kind of empathizing with that person and you really understand why. But for Snow, it's like, no, you've always been this arrogant and entitled and psychotic. And I think the book also is kind of a philosophical look on nature versus nurture, and how greed can take a person who may be leaning one way, either bad or good, and how if they just dwell on things for a little bit too long, it could cast them into the bad side. When I'm thinking about it critically, as far as like a psychology stance, it's a very interesting book, and I really like it, and I do think that it is worth reading. So while I was reading all of the Hunger Games books, I also was reading my first ARC, which again, ARC stands for Advanced Reader Copy. So this basically means that I got the opportunity to read a book before it got published. And that book was Good to See You by indie author Bella Purcell. And I loved this book. It was so cute. I'm such a hopeful romantic. And I just love, and I love watching people fall in love, whether it's real life, in movies, on TV. Like, it just fills me with so much happiness. Like, I love people falling in love and being happy. So I'm definitely someone who loves romance books. I like this book too because I'm normally a second chance hater. I think if you were dating someone, things didn't work out, I feel like that's kind of your answer on whether you should be back together again. And I also know that there are things like timing and circumstances that sometimes people aren't in the position to be able to be in a serious relationship. I think it's kind of nuanced. But so normally in real life and in books, I'm normally not someone who likes second chance. So this book was a second chance romance that I actually enjoyed, and I actually was rooting for them. Like, I wanted them to be together. And I think it's because Hayden, our hero, was in love with Sadie. Like, he's always loved Sadie. Like, he's never met anyone like her. Like, he's tried to move on, and that's the woman that I want. And I liked Hayden. He wanted to be with Sadie, and he made it very known, and I really appreciate that. I think that Good to See You was very realistic. One of my favorite things that I talked about in my vlog of this book was that the arguments felt real, and the anxiety that Sadie had getting into a new relationship, being worried about not being good enough, about disappointing his family because she's not as quote unquote successful as maybe someone else that Hayden could be with. I think he did a really good job of articulating the reasons why he wanted to be with Sadie. And while I was frustrated with her, I definitely felt that it was also me thinking back on how I've reacted in certain situations in relationships where it's like, just get out of your head. Like, you're being your own worst enemy right now. So I feel like that was very well executed and very well thought out. And I really think that you should read it if you're a fan of romance books. Also, it's a closed door. So if you're not someone who likes reading spice in books, this is a really good option. So another book that I read in April was This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. And this was such a highly anticipated book for me. And unfortunately, I liked it and I didn't really love it as much as I did Before I Let Go by her. And it was not bad. It just felt, I don't know. This Could Be Us is the second book in the Skyland series by Kennedy Ryan. And actually this month on the 10th, the third and final book of this series is coming out. So this book follows Soledad, and she is a mother. She's a devoted wife to her husband. She finds out that he has been lying to her this whole entire time. He has been running basically a Ponzi scheme, has been, what is it called when they're like, people are stealing money? What is that called? I'll put it on screen because I don't remember what it's called right now. And he's been cheating on her. So she's like obviously devastated. He gets arrested by the FBI. It's a whole ordeal. And the person that kind of catches her husband in this scheme is the accountant for the company that her husband Edward has been working for. And also, side note, Edward is an absolute joke. Like, he is probably one of my least favorite people on this planet, and he doesn't even exist. Like, if I ever saw him, call the police. I'm serious. So the accountant that found again, I need that word that I can't think of. His name is Judah, and Judah is very handsome, of course. So they meet at a party accidentally, and her husband does not like Judah at all because, one, I really think that he knew that Judah was going to be a little too good at his job and find out what was going on. Always talked bad about him. And so when Soledad meets him, she's like, oh, you're the guy my husband hates. So the book is not only about Soledad and Judah kind of getting together, but it's also about her on a self-love journey because she kind of lost herself as a mother and a wife to a man that just did not like her at all, obviously. And that's great and dandy, but to me, it just felt so stereotypical and kind of like performative, and I wasn't fully convinced. So much of it was, oh, I'm on the self-love journey, and I didn't like the way she treated Judah. Like, I felt like she was kind of playing with his emotions because he was very forward with like, hey, I like you, and she was like, well, I'm not dating anyone, I'm dating myself. But then would go and like hang out with him and be flirty and stuff. Like, girl, don't be that person. And that was irritating for me personally. I have been on the other side of that, where someone's like, I don't want to date right now, but they're steadily blowing up my phone. Make up your mind. What do you want to do? It wasn't my favorite. Also, the epilogue, like, I don't even want to elaborate on it, but it physically made me have a visceral reaction. Like, that was not needed. I want to say again, it's not bad. I rated it 3.5 stars. Like, there are parts that I really enjoyed, but there was more things that I was like either annoyed by or didn't really care about. I wish we had gotten to know Judah a little bit more. Even in his POVs, I still was like, okay, but what else about you? You know what I mean? There is autism representation in this book. Kennedy Ryan herself has a son who has autism, so she wanted to create a story with like her son in mind, which I thought was really beautiful. I did cry, but it was at the beginning of the book, and then I did not cry for the rest of the book because part of me was like, I low-key don't care about this couple. And that's not really something you want in a romance book. Like, I cared, but I didn't really care. Would I recommend this book? Yeah, it's cool. So I own it, and I'm thinking about selling it because I only want books on my bookshelf that I really, really love, but we'll see. Anyways, we're gonna move on to the next book now. I also read 3 audiobooks. The very first book that I read in April was called Annihilation, and it's by Jeff Vandermeer, and I liked it. Very flowery, it's very atmospheric, and it's also very off-putting and like weird and chaotic and kind of confusing. The whole time you're just kind of like, what is going on? Annihilation is also a movie that came out in 2018, and I actually saw the movie in probably 2020, I think. The movie's weird. The movie leans... Take a shot every time I say the movie. Good grief. The movie, take a shot, is a little more horror. Man, my accent is kicking my butt today. The movie is definitely more horror leaning. So the book is basically about Area X, basically being quarantined by the government, and they've sent 11 teams to this area to kind of do research on it, figure out what's going on. Every single team has either come back home weird, gotten cancer and died while inside there. Like they just disappear and like no one ever hears from them again. Some of them come back and they are like mute. Like every expedition, there's something weird that happens with the crew. So we're following a woman who I don't remember her name, but her husband was on the 11th expedition. And when he comes home, she's like, he's home, but something's different. Like, this is not my husband. It's giving like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Like, just something's off about my husband because they were having issues, major problems. Like, his personality is different. He's reacting to things in a way he would never do. Things that he had a really strong opinion on. He's kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. He's like staring off into the distance a lot. Like, he's just off. So now she's really intrigued on what this area is. So she goes as a member of the 12th expedition, and this is the first one where it's an all woman crew, and they get to this place and it's like shimmery and like weird. There's like hybrid animal things. Like, it just looks weird. I'm someone who likes science fiction and speculative fiction. I think it's cool to kind of like think about different concepts and things, even if you maybe are like, this could never happen. In my opinion, I think it helps me think a little more creativity. That's not a sentence. That's not a real, I'm just going to move on past that. So anyways, the book is just very weird. And even when I watched the movie, it was like also very weird. Like, it's kind of off-putting and uncomfortable, and then you're kind of wondering, is the POV from our main lead, is she trustworthy? What's going on in her brain? I do think it's like an allegory in some ways too, of maybe the earth kind of reclaiming itself back, that kind of thing. I don't know, it's just very interesting. I really enjoyed it, and again, the whole time I was like, what is going on? I will say there were some parts that were very like heart pounding, like, oh, what's gonna happen, and the other parts where it's like, we're taking 17 pages to describe, like front and back, describing like the moss that's on the side of a tree and like how it looks and how it's flowing in the breeze and all that kind of stuff. Which wasn't bad, but some parts I was just like, get on with it, okay? On 1x speed, I think it's like a 6-hour audiobook. And I don't know if I recommend the audiobook over the physical copy. I listened to the audiobook, but I wonder if I would have liked it more if I had read it, but I don't really know. I rated it 3.5 stars, which is pretty good on like my personal scale of books. I don't know if I would reread it. It is part of a series, and we kind of get more answers to like what Area X is, but I don't really know if I want to continue the series. I kind of like where it is right now. So anyways, that was Annihilation. Okay, so the next audiobook that I listened to was Renegades by Melissa Meyer. The thunder is thundering. Can you relax, please? Thank you. Renegades is basically if the Hunger Games, Divergent, and Marvel Studios decided to come together and like write a novel. I could see how it was pulling inspiration. Renegades is a trilogy. So basically in this world, there are people who have superpowers and they are called prodigies. And then there are people who are without superpowers and I don't remember what they are called. And there's a specific group of prodigies that kind of helped when the country was under like war of like the normies versus people with superpowers or something like that. I don't really remember. So there's a subsection of the prodigies and they call themselves renegades, and they're basically like the cops, and they kind of help regulate people who have powers, because not every person who is a prodigy is a renegade. You have to like try out for it. So there's like a trials kind of section where you have to like show your skills and stuff. So this book follows Nova. So she's the only one in her family that has a superpower, and she can put people to sleep, right? And for her, she does not have to sleep. She can kind of like stay awake forever. In this book, there's heroes. This is like, is this all over the place? So in this book, there are heroes and there are villains. So the villains, they call themselves anarchists. One day, Nova's at home with her sister and her two parents. Nova and her family are poor. So her dad kind of helps either renegades or anarchists like create weapons. He does like under the table kind of stuff. A group comes and basically kills her family. The thing with the renegades is like they are supposed to be saving people from the villains, right? So they don't come to save Nova's family, and of course she is upset about that. She decides she's going to take matters into her own hands, and she is going to dismantle the entire system, basically. So it's kind of giving some Hunger Games vibes in that kind of sense. There's different groups, which is kind of like what's pulling from like Divergent, in my opinion. And of course, like the whole superhero thing is very much like Marvel. The book itself reads like you're watching like a Marvel, Captain America, you know, Black Panther. Like it reads like you're watching a movie, which is something really cool. The thing with this book is it's so long. This is like a 16-hour audiobook. It's 520 plus pages. Like it's super long. And there are parts that are exciting, a lot of action. There's a lot that's just world building, and we're getting introduced to like tons of characters, villains, and superheroes. There's a lot of backstory happening. Like it's a lot of like setting up for the next 2 books because it is a trilogy. I rated it 3.75 stars. I did like it. Like overall, I thought it was a really good book. I was entertained. When the action was happening, I was locked in. Okay. There were just times where I was like, okay, is this like necessary to have in the book? But I guess it is important to kind of understand the dynamics of the system, how the government in this book works. There's a little bit of like a forbidden love thing. So Nova has been living with the anarchist, although she's not one really herself. That's kind of like where she fits in, because being a prodigy is kind of looked down upon, and she could get hurt because she does have these superpowers. She actually ends up meeting a guy named Adrian. So he is an adopted into like the Renegades, the head Renegades, like he's been adopted into their family. His code name is Sketch, and basically he can like draw things. If he thinks about something that he wants to like have physically in front of him, he can like draw it out on a piece of paper and like pull it out of the paper, which is honestly like a really cool superpower. Like that'd be awesome. So he's given himself like these cool tattoos where he has like a shield, cool like arm attachments that can help him pick up stuff. Like it's actually a really cool like superpower actually. Nova and Adrian meet, and there's like a weird connection thing going on. It was good. It was entertaining. It's just so long. I'm not really in a major rush to finish the series, but I did like it enough to continue the series. It's just not like priority for me. Anyways, so that's Renegades. So the last book that I read in April was called Harlem Rhapsody by Victoria Christopher Murray, and this follows the story of an often forgotten woman, Jessie R. Fawcett. So she was the literary area for W.E.B. Du Bois. Side point, he was a very important American sociologist, historian, writer, editor, activist first. He was a important Thunderbreak. He was a very important person because he actually helped in the creation of the NAACP, which is very important. He was also the very first Black person to get a PhD from Harvard University, so he's very important. But Jessie Fawcett was also more important because she was the main reason the Harlem Renaissance, which was a very important time for Black people in the 1920s as far as like progression and being treated as human beings. The Harlem Renaissance was a very important time in the 1920s to the 1930s, I believe. It was a time of cultural, artistic expression for Black people during that time because there wasn't a whole lot of it happening, obviously. It was just a very like resurgence of Black culture, Black writers, Black musicians, Black authors, and specifically authors. Jessie was a literary editor of this really important Black magazine. They also had a special section called The Brownies, where she would feature different Black poets and writers where they could submit in works and it would be published in the magazine. So this is how we know about people like Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, Countee Cullen. She was also really close friends with Nella Larson. She was connected with like Duke Ellington. Like she was such an important person during the Harlem Renaissance, and she does not get hardly any credit. This novel was basically kind of like a love letter to her and her life, and like a thanks to all that she has done for the Black community, because without her, like, when would we have gotten to hear from these authors? Because she was someone who was also very big on telling Black stories and not them only being about slavery or being persecuted because of the color of their skin. She wanted to really tell the stories of average Black people, like them falling in love, them navigating, coming to their own selves. Overall, I really liked this book. I ended up rating it 3.5 star. No, I ended up rating this book 3.75 stars. There was a lot that I really liked about it, mainly learning history that I never learned in school. I loved hearing the origin stories of how we got people like Langston Hughes and Nara Larson. Like, I thought that was super cool. I love learning more about W.E.B. Du Bois too, because again, from school, you don't really learn that much about these really prominent Black figures. The only thing that I did not love about this book, which is unfortunate because it's kind of why we have the book in the first place, but the main storyline that goes through the beginning to the end of the book is the fact that Jesse was having an affair with W.E.B. Du Bois. Now, this book isn't like graphic in any way, but they're having an affair with each other. It made me really not like W.E.B. Du Bois, because it's like, bro, you were, first of all, okay. I don't like want to rant, but he was just like very super misogynistic. Also, let's keep in mind, this is a fiction book, so who knows if the conversations actually happened in this way, but W.E.B. kept a diary and he wrote stuff down. So in the author's note, Miss Victoria, she also says that there are scenes in this book that are like nearly word for word from W.E.B.'s diary, because he kept like very meticulous, detailed diary entries, which I thought was super cool to be able to like know that this is historically accurate. But yeah, he's just very misogynistic and was like, essentially, it's okay that I'm cheating on my wife because she knows that I'm a man who has needs. I have different needs for different times. May that love never find me. I was appalled, actually. Jessie was like, she never really wanted to be married anyways, but then she would get like jealous if he spent time with his wife, which I'm like, girl, you're not married to him. And then she would get jealous when it came out that he was also like fooling around with other women. Like, girl, he's a cheater. You are not the only one, let me tell you. So that part of the book was like throughout the entire novel, which was kind of annoying, and I wish she would just like stand up, bro. I understand why it was included, because without their romantic relationship, we would not have the history of these Black authors and poets without that. So I understand the reason why it was included. I just wish she would have like figured out a way to make her leave that man alone sooner, because it was kind of like I don't think I'll go out and buy it. So I used my library for this book. So overall, I did enjoy Harlem Rhapsody. I just wish that I got less of W.E.B. Du Bois, because it's like every situation she was in, every page, her conscious thoughts were about that man. And I was like, girl, I do not care about that man in this story. But anyways, and I do think because it's set on like actual things that occurred, because I feel like I was able to learn a little bit of like real historical events. This mic is mad heavy right now. Okay, so those are the books that I read in April. I think that the Hunger Games were the only books that I really was like, yes, like these are so good. Like nothing was really bad. Like I didn't have anything that I regretted finishing. The Hunger Games are really the only books that gave me some feeling, for sure. So let's get into the books that I want to read this May. First things first, let's talk more Hunger Games. If you remember, I read all 4 Hunger Games books in April. And if you also know, a new Hunger Games book was just released in April. What if I told you I was number 2 currently in line for my library to listen to the audiobook? Yeah, it's me. I'm excited. I'm definitely still gonna buy it. Like I need to be holding that book. Terrified to start it, because everyone that I've seen that has read it is like devastated afterwards and are fighting to not get into a book slump. Not because it was bad, because it was amazing and it was just emotionally devastating. I'm scared. Also going to listen to Artificial Condition. That was on my TBR from last month, and I didn't get to it because I ran out of like instant hoopla credits. So I'm going to try to read that. That's the second book in the Murderbot Diaries. The first one was called All Systems Red. I rated that 5 stars last month and I was obsessed with it. So I'm very excited to get into Artificial Condition. So those are the 2 audiobooks that I'm going to prioritize this May. Hopefully Sunrise on the Reaping comes off hold soon, because I'm like foaming at the mouth ready to read that book. I'm currently in the middle of 2 books that have carried over from April. The first one being The Housemaid. I don't know what that was. The Housemaid's Secret. So this is the second in the Housemaid series. I think I'm like 50% in. I'm liking it. It's kind of giving the same vibes as the first book, but Frida is a good like popcorn junk food author for me. And then I'm basically doing a buddy read with my friend Annie Banani. Hey girl. We're reading Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Obsessed with it so far. I'm like 12% in, I think. Great Big Beautiful Life is about two writers. One of them is named Alice, and she's very much like the sunshiny character. I think she is, so far, my thoughts are she is hiding some serious trauma right now because she had a nightmare in the middle of the night, and I was like, oh. And she is also tall. She's 5'9". Yeah, I love it when Emily Henry writes tall characters. Like, thank you so much, Emily. I'm also 5'9", so it's really easy for me to like make myself be Alice. Like, ooh, love that. And then our male lead, his name is Hayden, and he's also tall. Like, Alice keeps saying like this brick wall of a man. He towers over me. I saw a post the other day that was like, Emily Henry has written the most Allie Hazelwood MMC that I've ever heard of. He was like, I don't even think Allie Hazelwood could write a more Allie Hazelwood MMC. And I cannot agree more. Hayden is a grumpy boy. He's huge. He's super tall. Basically, the story is about the two of them fighting for the opportunity to write a biography on the super famous Hollywood Scarlet, who's basically taken herself out of the public eye now that she has gotten older. Like, no one's seen her in like decades. And she's ready to write her life story. Obviously, only one of them can tell her story. Early predictions. I do feel like our Hollywood icon may pick both of them to like co-write, but part of me also thinks that she's gonna pick Hayden because I've been hearing that people are saying that there's like a plot twist that's like, oh, no way. Also, this book is very controversial because people are either really loving it or not liking it at all because this is a different style Emily Henry book aesthetic. A lot of people are comparing it to like the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So there's like a story within a story. A couple of my friends have already read it and they really enjoyed it. So I feel like I'm going to enjoy it too. The next book that I want to read, The Women by Kristen Hanna. It's on my library hold right now and I need to start that like immediately because I fear it's going to go off hold and I'm going to like lose it and I'm going to have to wait like 500 more months to read it. But it's about the women soldiers and nurses in the Vietnam War. I'm going to try and read Summer in the City by Alex Astor. So I just picked that up recently on Indie Bookstore Day and I'm very excited to read it. And I think I'm going to bring that book with me on a bachelorette trip because we're going to be on a lake so I can read by the water. Very excited. And Summer in the City is about I think she's a writer who meets this guy and then they have a connection one night and then they just never see each other again. Something happens and then they end up not liking each other anymore. But he's like a tech startup billionaire. He needs like good PR basically. And she needs inspiration because she's like, I think she writes like in a magazine or something. I don't really remember. They decide they're going to fake date and go on different dates in the city. It's supposed to be like fake dating until it's real dating. It's under 300 pages, which I love when romance books are under 300 pages because like y'all do not need to be saying all that. Like what else could you say? And then my very last book is an ARC that I got in my ARC bag and it's called Pugs and Kisses. Do not remember what it's about, so I can't even begin to tell you. Just know that it comes out on July 15th. Okay, so those were all the books that I read in April, plus all the books that I'm going to be planning on reading this May. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have read any of the books that I've mentioned, or if maybe I've convinced you to read one of these books that I've mentioned, let me know. And if you made it this far to the video, make sure you leave me this emoji. Don't know what it is yet, but you see it. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. That way you're notified every time I upload a new video. Okay, bye for now.